The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 52. Isaac and the three of them looked at Charlie, who was bathed in golden sunlight, and they were completely shocked and speechless. Today's they overturned all their previous impressions of Charlie. Today's Charlie looks like a god in their eyes. They didn't dare to imagine that Charlie easily killed the 8 heavenly kings by himself. Instead of getting hurt, he also summoned the thunder, causing an avalanche and directly burying the 8 heavenly kings. Moreover, Charlie was in the avalanche with such destructive power, and he was unscathed. Seeing Charlie getting closer and closer, Liang couldn't hold back and knelt in the snow with a plop. He bowed to Charlie, dropping his head. "Mr. Wade, please accept the next worship. In this life, I would bow down and worship Mr. Wade alone." Then Mr. Orville knelt down with a plop. "Mr. Wade, I respect you in this life." Isaac knelt on the ground tremblingly, with his hands up and down on the ground. "Mr. Wade, from today, you are the only god in Isaac's heart." Charlie walked to the three of them, smiled faintly, and said, "From now on, I am still the same Charlie, or the live-in son-in-law Charlie. No matter what you think of me and how you treat me, keep it in your heart. Tell no one what happened today." After the three listened, they repeatedly kowtowed. Charlie looked at Isaac and said seriously, "Isaac, especially you must not tell anyone in the Wade family what happened just now." Isaac gave a startled expression and blurted out, "Mr. Wade, don't worry, if the Wade family asks about it, I will say that these people died of an avalanche." Charlie nodded and said, "That's good." Having said that, he said again, "This seems to be the only way into the village. Now that the avalanche has closed the road, you can use the Wade family's power to quickly repair these roads. Before the repairs are done, the helicopter must come over to deliver some necessary supplies to the villagers. Don't let it affect their normal lives." Isaac said immediately, "You can rest assured, Mr. Wade, I will call to make arrangements now, and the arrangements must be made properly." Charlie gave a hum, looked at the time, and said, "Oh, it's almost 7 o'clock. My wife can't find me and should be anxious, so quickly send me back. I can't make breakfast for my wife this morning." Everyone was stunned. Is this still Master Wade who defeated the 8 heavenly kings just now? Is this still Mr. Wade who summoned the sky thunder to cause the avalanche? He just killed the 8 heavenly kings with such a domineering method, but now he's very upset because he can't cook for his wife. Isaac was the first to react and hurriedly said, "Mr. Wade, I will take us to the airport by helicopter, and then we will fly back to Oris Hill. We can take you home in more than 3 hours." "Okay." Charlie nodded, "Hurry up." In the morning sun, a helicopter quickly left Chenbai Mountain and headed towards airport. At the same time, the local media have received reports on the avalanche. While the media and the locals were following up, the Wade's disaster relief helicopter also started flying to the villages in Chenbai Mountain with a large amount of supplies. At this moment, the Wu family, Elder Wu, lying on the sick bed, is still waiting for news from the 8 heavenly kings. He didn't sleep much all night last night. On the one hand, it was because of physical discomfort, but more because he was feeling uneasy. Before dawn, Regner had called the 8 heavenly kings, and Lin Yuan told him that they were almost at their destination. So the Wu family thought that the next time should be the time for the 8 heavenly kings to snatch people, so they didn't dare to bother too much. Seeing that almost an hour has passed, Mr. Wu calculated that the strength of the 8 heavenly kings is so strong that 1 hour should be enough for them to kill all of them, and then rescue the father and son. So he said to Regner, "Regner, call Lin Yuan and ask how things are going on." "Okay." Regner nodded immediately, took out his mobile phone and called Lin Yuan. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. He opened his mouth and said to Old Master Wu, "Dad, no one answers, will they still be doing business?" Mr. Wu nodded, "It is possible, then we will wait patiently." 10 minutes later, Mr. Wu said again, "Regner, call Lin Yuan again." Regner immediately followed suit. But this time the call still couldn't get through. Mr. Wu frowned, "It's not right. With their strength, how could it take so long? Some second-rate bodyguards are just a few second-rate bodyguards. To Mr. Lin Yuan and the others, it is not a problem. I still remember that back then, when I fought in the quartet, Mr. Lin Yuan followed me into the opponent's nest, and the opponent's 24 people were killed by him with 1 stick of incense. This level of strength is simply beyond the imagination of ordinary people." Regner counseled, "Dad, don't worry. Qinbei Mountain is in a remote location, the weather is cold, and the place is isolated from the rest of the world. What kind of minor situation will not cause an unevenness?" Elder Wu nodded gently, "Then wait a little longer." After another 10 minutes, Mr. Wu continued to urge, "Regner, keep calm." Regner immediately followed suit, but there was still no change. Mr. Wu is a little anxious now, he feels more and more that the situation seems a bit wrong. Therefore, he urged Regner to call Lin Yuan over and over again. Lin Yuan couldn't get through, so he asked Regner to call other people in the 8 heavenly kings. But the phone calls of several other people still couldn't get through. To be precise, the phone can be connected, but no one answers. It took nearly an hour to reach the 8 heavenly kings, which made everyone in the Wu family feel a chill in their backs. How can the 8 heavenly kings disappear all at once? This is not realistic. Even if the 8 great heavenly kings encounter strong opponents, with their strength, it is impossible that none of them can escape. After all, just a few hours before them, one of the 16 people who went to Qinbei Mountain escaped. Those people are ordinary second-rate masters who use guns better than their fists, and they are not martial arts masters at all. There is no reason a super warrior like the 8 heavenly kings can't escape after going there, right? Mr. Orville was nervous, and even his breathing became abnormally quick. He firmly grasped Regner's hand, his face was pale, and he whispered to him, "Nothing is right, this time it is really not right." Regner could only persuade him, "Dad, don't be so anxious, and wait for a while." Elder Wu said earnestly, "Lin Yuan has been following me for so many years and has never been in such a situation, so something is really wrong this time. I even suspect that they may have encountered an accident." When Charlie had boarded the plane and returned to Oris Hill from Qinbei Mountain, Wu's family was already going crazy in a hurry. The 8 heavenly kings rushed to Qinbei Mountain overnight, just to rescue a father and son, but he did not expect them to go there and immediately lose contact. Regner made the phone calls over and over again, and the cell phone he used was almost out of power, but he still couldn't get through any cell phone. At this moment, his mobile phone suddenly received a call. The one who called him was the one who escaped from Chenbai Mountain last night. He was still hiding in Chenbai Mountain City at this time. He was planning to wait until the 8 great heavenly kings triumph and come back with the 8 great heavenly kings plane. He didn't expect that he hadn't waited for the 8 heavenly kings, but he had waited for an astonishing bad news. Just now, the local TV station of Chenbai Mountain was broadcasting emergency news. The news said that an avalanche occurred at the foot of Chenbai Mountain. The avalanche caused tens of thousands of tons of snow to vent down, breaking down the road into the mountain, and also 2 cars and 8 people were buried under the snow. Local rescuers used large-scale rescue equipment to dig out 8 unsightly bodies that had been hit by the snow. Upon hearing the news, he immediately thought of the 8 heavenly kings. Because he knew that the 8 heavenly kings drove 2 off-road vehicles into the mountain early this morning. That ghost place doesn't have many residents, and it's not a tourist attraction. The local residents are very poor and can't afford off-road vehicles at all. Tourists outside don't like to go to such remote places, so the roads there basically gets no traffic. When the locals want to come out, they all come out in horse-drawn carriages. There is no off-road vehicle. So he can almost conclude that the 8 people who died in the avalanche were the 8 heavenly kings. So, he immediately told Regner the news. After Regner got the news, his whole body was struck by lightning. It took him a long time to recover from the shock. Then he looked at his anxious father on the sickbed and said with a trembling, "Dad, my people just told me that there was an avalanche at the foot of Chenbai Mountain. 2 cars and 8 people are involved in it. All 8 people have died. It is very likely that they are the 8 kings." Grandpa Wu suddenly seemed to hit his heart with a heavy hammer, coughing several times, and blurted out, "This is impossible. How could the 8 heavenly kings die in an avalanche? They are all masters." Regner sighed and asked, "Why don't I let my people go over and recognize a corpse, and check if it is right?" Elder Wu was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "If that's the case, take a look." Claire got up in the morning and felt a little surprised when he didn't see Charlie's shadow. She called Charlie and found that Charlie's phone could not get through, which made her feel a little strange. After more than 3 years of marriage, Charlie has never disappeared unexpectedly. She used to wake up in the morning and couldn't see him. He was either shopping for groceries or making breakfast. But now, he suddenly couldn't get in touch. Anxiously waiting until about 10 o'clock, Charlie still couldn't get through, and Claire began to feel a little worried. What she thought was that Charlie had been in close contact with many big people during the recent period, and helped many big people watch feng shui, and also took a lot of money from the big people, even this Thompson first-class villa. Before that, Claire had always been afraid that Charlie would have a thunderstorm, just like those thunderous financial products, and suddenly his reputation would go bankrupt. If his credibility really goes bankrupt, those big men will certainly not spare him lightly. Just when Claire was thinking about it, Charlie called. As soon as Claire answered the phone, she blurted out and asked, "Hey, Charlie, where have you been?" Charlie had just got off the plane at this time and was about to take a helicopter, so he said to Claire, "My wife, I showed a friend of Feng Shui this morning. Their Feng Shui is quite strange, so I can't use my mobile phone to radiate, which affected the judgment of Feng Shui fortune, so I turned off the phone." "Did you look at Feng Shui again?" Claire only felt that her head was so big. She blurted out, "Charlie, didn't we say it? Try not to show Feng Shui to others in the future." Charlie hurriedly said, "My wife, this time I am not helping those big people to watch Feng Shui, but to help a friend of my former welfare institution. He has had bad luck recently, so he asked me to come and have a look. I can take money from him, of course." Claire breathed a sigh of relief when she heard him say this, and asked, "Then when will you go home?" Charlie said, "I will be there in about 20 minutes and half an hour." Claire said in a convenient way, "That's good, I'll wait for you at home." Isaac's helicopter immediately carried Charlie, Orville, and Liang to the city. When he was approaching Thompson's villa, Charlie said to Liang, "Liang, I will take the lawyer to Wei's Pharmaceutical when I have time tomorrow. After we sign the contract, I will give you a good stomach medicine." Liang blurted out, "Mr. Wade, I have vowed to bow down to you in this life. You helped me take Wei's Pharmaceuticals back. I am willing to hand all the shares of Wei's Pharmaceuticals to Mr. Wade." Charlie waved his hand and said lightly, "I already said that I want 80% of Wei's Pharmaceuticals. No matter how much it is, I won't want it, but no matter how little, I can't promise to give you the prescription and keep it for you. 20%, I will never let you suffer, so you don't want to tell me anything, just give me things like that." Liang's heart shuddered, and he hurriedly clasped his fists and said, "Liang would like to follow Mr. Wade's teachings." Charlie nodded, then looked at Orville and Isaac, "You two go back, remember not to tell anyone about this." "Mr. Wade, I understand." "It is good." Charlie nodded in satisfaction. Seeing that he was almost at the Thompson Villa area, he said to Isaac, "Let's land on the golf course. I will walk over the golf course." "Okay, master." After Charlie hurried home, Claire couldn't imagine that her husband hurriedly set off from Oris Hill early this morning, went to Chenbai Mountain more than 2,000 kilometers away, at the foot of Chenbai Mountain, and killed 8 villains with blood on their hands. Since Charlie's current strength is very strong, and his physical stamina is even better, so even after tossing such a big circle, she can't see any fatigue at all. It just so happened that it was almost time for lunch, so Claire took him to the vegetable garden in the yard and happily picked a lot of the ingredients she wanted to eat at noon. At this time, the door was pushed open, and Elaine, Charlie's mother-in-law, walked in sneakily from outside with crutches. Seeing Elaine walked into the yard with crutches, she was carrying a huge shoulder bag, which was bulging inside. Charlie felt that her mother-in-law must have done nothing good. Claire looked at her in surprise and asked, "Mom, where did you go early in the morning? I haven't seen you." Elaine laughed and said, "I went to the wholesale market and bought something." Claire blamed, "Mom, you haven't crutched your leg, why are you running around?" "It's okay." Elaine waved her hand and said indifferently, "Don't think it is not convenient for me to use crutches, but I am very used to it now, and my legs don't hurt, and crutches are a bit trying, but it's okay." Claire asked again, "Mom, what did you buy a big bag of things? Are you tired? I'll hold it for you. Elaine smiled and said, I'm not tired, I'm not tired, all of them are hats, it doesn't matter. Hat? Claire was even more puzzled. Mom, why do you buy so many hats? There are no less than a dozen hats in a big bag? Elaine smirked and opened the zipper of the backpack. Claire and Charlie both looked at them, only to find that the backpack was full of emerald green colors. Elaine reached out at this time and took out a few various hats from the inside, all of which were authentic green without exception. Claire was dumbfounded and asked, Mom, why do you buy so many green hats? Who would wear this kind of hat? Elaine laughed and said, I bought 20 various green hats, not for wearing, but for hanging on the balcony. You didn't watch the video of your grandma and the family in the hospital. That Noah was actually put on a green hat by Horia. How can I let him go for such a funny thing? It happens that their home can see my bedroom terrace, and I will hang all these hats on the side of the terrace facing their home. I will tell Noah to look at these 20 green hats every day, and he will be so happy. Claire said dumbfounded, Mom, why are you having trouble with the uncle like this? He was already suffered bad enough. Enough. Elaine said angrily, you don't know how arrogant he used to be, how bad he was to our family, and now finally grabbing his handle, then I won't laugh at him to death. Charlie shook his head helplessly. Among other things, Elaine's torturing ability is indeed rare in the world. Noah was already disgusting enough. If he could see 20 green hats on the terrace next door every day, his mood must be very painful. It is estimated that Elaine could think of this kind of torture. Claire felt that this was not appropriate, and wanted to persuade Elaine, but Elaine didn't listen to her at all, and went straight into the villa. After returning to room, the first thing she did was to go to the terrace and hung 20 various green hats next to each other, all on the side facing the Wilson family villa. With 20 green hats waving in the wind, this picture is really different and sour. Since coming out of the hospital, Noah has separated from Horia. The reason for the separation is of course that he no longer has any feelings for Horia in his heart. And he felt that Horia was too dirty. Had it not been for Regnar's request, he would have divorced her a long time ago, and even if she didn't go through the divorce procedures, he would kick her out of the house. But now that Regnar had already made his mark for Horia, Noah naturally didn't dare to disobey him. But you can't get a divorce. Separation is always possible, right? So he drove Horia to a bedroom on the first floor. Horia didn't care about it. Although she was a little angry at Noah's unfeeling in her heart, she was still a little guilty deep down. After all, he wore such a big green hat for her, and now with the child in her stomach she hasn't gone to the hospital for an operation, he must see himself very upset. At this moment, Noah just opened his eyes. Since coming out of the hospital, he has been suffering from sequelae, the main manifestation of which is weakness and lethargy. He hasn't really slept enough until now, but in his sleep he always felt a sharp itching in his crotch, so he woke up while scratching it. The itching sensation is very peculiar. At first, it was rather itchy, and then he couldn't control it, and it became very itchy when he scratched it. If he scratched it twice, it would become extremely itchy. So he scratched himself to the extreme. He couldn't help wondering, what happened to him? He's always paid attention to personal hygiene, so there shouldn't be any lesions. He was thinking about it, and he had jumped out of the bed. Feeling dizzy, he walked onto the terrace while scratching it, wanting to breathe fresh air. This is good for living in a villa. The privacy can be well protected. The neighbors are far away and there are no high-rise buildings. Even if you only wear a pair of underwear and walk on the terrace, you don't worry about being seen by others. He came to the terrace, stretched his waist, and then felt the unbearable itchiness even worse. He grabbed a few hard and didn't see any improvement. He couldn't help but feel upset. He was about to go to the bathroom to take a closer look at what was going on. When he turned around, he felt that it was something on the opposite side of the terrace of Charlie's house. There was a bunch of green things floating in the wind. So he hurriedly looked intently, almost half dead in his sight. Although it is a little far away, it is still clear that the 20 windward things hanging on the terrace of Charlie's house are green hats of different styles and shapes. 20 green hats, what does this mean? And it's facing the direction of his own, isn't it the thing to make it clear for him? Isn't this just a mockery of being Horia wearing a green hat? It's outrageous. Noah was out of breath, his fists were already clenched, and his nails were almost embedded in the flesh. He doesn't need to think about it, the person who can do this kind of devil's thing must be Elaine, there is no second person. At this moment, he really wanted to grab Elaine's hair and slap her ugly face dozens of times back and forth. Thinking of this, he immediately turned back to the house, put on his pants and jacket, and rushed out of the building. Mrs. Wilson was sitting in the Grand Master's chair in the courtyard basking in the sun. While basking in the sun, he sighed with emotion about the life of a local tyrant living in Thompson's villa. Except that the family living next to him is more disheartening, everything else is perfect to the extreme. This makes the Lady Wilson feel very comfortable inside. Seeing that it was almost time to cook, the lady even wanted to go to Charlie's vegetable garden to steal an order. But when she thought about it carefully, Charlie's family is so bad, it's better not to eat their dishes, otherwise they don't know what methods they used in it, and they may even use pesticides. The last time she used daffodils as leeks, a family was admitted to the hospital. The feeling of a family of 5 jumping in the house and being pulled away by an ambulance is truly unforgettable. Just as comfortable, she saw her elder son Noah going out in a hurry, and hurriedly asked him, "Where are you going in a hurry, Noah?" Noah said with a black face, "I'm going to find Elaine, the shrew." Old Mrs. Wilson was a little unclear, so she didn't understand why after her son woke up, the first thing he did was to go to Elaine to settle the account. So she hurriedly followed up and asked, "Noah, what are you going to do with Elaine?" Noah said angrily, "Elaine, a shameless shrew, hung dozens of various green hats on the terrace of her villa. Isn't this just showing me disgusting?" Old Mrs. Wilson looked surprised, and blurted out and asked, "Is there anything like this?" Noah gritted his teeth and said, "Don't you know if you follow me to have a look?" So the mother and son went out together. As soon as they left, Mrs. Wilson saw the 20 green hats fluttering in the wind on Elaine's terrace. At this glance, her nose was almost crooked. The Lady Wilson said furiously, "This Elaine. She must have watched the video from hospital. This is deliberately disgusting us." Noah nodded, gritted his teeth and said, "Yeah, Mom, I can't want her for anything. Deceive people too much. The mother and son came to the door of Charlie's villa aggressively, and then the Lady Wilson slammed the door and cursed, "Elaine, you fraudulent, quickly open the door for me." After shouting, Elaine stood directly on the terrace on the third floor and cursed, "Oh, dead old woman, you are not at home to serve your pregnant eldest daughter-in-law," and ran to my door yelling. The mother and son did not expect that Elaine would tell Horia about being pregnant as soon as she spoke. This made the expressions of both of them suddenly become very ugly. After all, it is said that family ugliness cannot be publicized, and no one wants others to mention their own pain points as soon as they speak. The most depressing of these is Noah. As soon as he heard Elaine mentioned Horiya's pregnancy, he blurted out angrily, "You btch, if you talk nonsense to me, believe it or not, I cut your tongue." Elaine curled her lips and said, "Oh, brother, I really didn't expect that you have such a great ability, you will cut my tongue?" As she said, she deliberately laughed and said, "Since you have this ability, why not cut the man who gave you a cuckold and made your wife pregnant? What's the point of screaming and fighting with me here? You." Noah's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Although he is not a good thing, but in terms of cursing the street, he is 1,000 miles worse than Elaine. With Elaine's combat effectiveness, it is not a problem for one person to scold him 10. So seeing Noah being so angry that he couldn't speak, Elaine pursued the victory and said with a smile, "Oh, brother, I really sympathize with you. The worst thing about a man is to be green-hated by others, and you will be led by others. After so much, I didn't expect my sister-in-law to give you a green hat and get pregnant. Didn't this make you like being a father? If I were you, I would have divorced her a long time ago." This time she even touched on Noah's inner pain. She wanted to drive Horia out of the house in her dreams, and never see this btch again in her life. But Horia was backed by Regner. He didn't dare to provoke Regner, let alone disobey Regner's meaning, so even if he was put on a green hat by Horia, he could not divorce her. A man wearing this kind of green hat can't divorce his wife yet. What a painful thing, it's a tragedy on earth. Unexpectedly, she would run into him. Now that Elaine slapped with her piercing words, Noah's face was so painful that he was slapped 10,000 times. Old Mrs. Wilson was naturally also very angry. She was arrogant for a lifetime. What she didn't want to see was the reputation of the Wilson family get hit. At the time Wendy accompanied Fredman, although it also caused a lot of criticism, but at that time, the Lady Wilson was helpless. Besides, young girls and rich men are not uncommon in society. Although everyone laughs, they are actually two jokes. But it passed. But this time, the trouble Horia caused was different. Horia really completely lost the face of the Wilson family. What's even more hateful is that someone took a video and posted it on the internet. This time it's finished. The entire Wilson family has become the laughing stock of Oris Hill. But in any case, the Lady Wilson could not accept Elaine, a shameless peach, and dared to laugh at her. So the Lady Wilson pointed at Elaine angrily, and cursed, "Elaine, you quickly rip off all those green hats to me, otherwise don't blame the Lady Wilson for being rude to you." Yo! Elaine curled her lips, "I bought these green hats with money. In my house, I can hang them wherever I want. Why do you think you are the old Wilson? Lady Wilson? Let me tell you, in my house, you can't even point fingers at me. After that, Elaine hurriedly changed her words, you are impossible and unqualified to enter my house. If you continue to swear at my door, then I will call the police and let the police arrest you again. When the old Mrs. Wilson heard that Elaine wanted to call the police to get her arrested, she trembled with anger. Although the two were angry, they were completely helpless. If they don't open the door to themselves, they can't rush in and beat her, right? If you rush in, you would break the law. If you call the police, you will definitely get caught. Just when the mother and son didn't know what to do, Elaine took a huge green hat from the side of the terrace and put it on her head, smiling and saying, "Oh, brother, look at this green hat, how festive. Look, this green one is greener than the leeks you ate 2 days ago." While talking, Elaine wore a hat on the terrace exaggeratedly. Although her legs are still not good, doing a few square dance poses is not a problem. Her twist made Noah even more angry. At this moment, Noah was almost on the verge of collapse. He couldn't wait to take a rocket launcher and directly blow up Elaine on the third-floor terrace. "Elaine, you BTCH, do you play this hand with me? Do you know what's going to happen to you?" Elaine smiled and said, "Your wife was made pregnant by someone sleeping, isn't the person sleeping with your wife doing well? What will happen to him? I just say a few words, and there will be no end." Ha 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 ha. Noah was furious. "Elaine, I'll kill you sooner or later." Just when Noah's dry blue veins beat violently, Elaine directly flicked the green hat, and the green hat fluttered directly on top of Noah's head. Noah took a step back and the green hat fell on the ground. Elaine clapped happily and laughed loudly, "Oh, brother, look at this green hat and it knows you, so it will fly directly over your head. If you don't hide, it will stay on your head." Noah was really angry. He jumped and scolded angrily, "Elaine, you biche, are you looking for death?" When Elaine heard this, she smiled and said, "Big brother, don't you be angry. I spent hundreds on this pile of green hats, but they are all for you." After that, Elaine didn't know where she took out a green Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles doll, and said loudly, "Brother, look at this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, he doesn't look like you, not only has his head green, but he is also very bearable. It's the best portrayal of you, big brother, ha ha ha." Noah was almost mad, trembling all over, and even his voice became trembling, "You BTCH, why don't you die? You are so wicked that you are going to hell." Elaine chuckled, "Big brother, I kindly gave you so many hats. You even cursed me to go to hell. You are too kind to avenge me? But I have always been adults not remembering villains. These are more than 20. All the green hats are given to you so that you can wear them for 20 consecutive days without repetition." Noah was really helpless, so he gritted his teeth and said, "Okay you Elaine, wait for me, I will call the property right now to report you." After finishing talking, he immediately called the property of Thompson Villa and blurted out, "I am the owner of A04. I now complain that the owner of A05 hangs uncivilized things on the terrace of the house. You can take care of it." After a short while, an electric bike from the property drove over quickly. Afterwards, 4 property managers got out of the electric bike and asked, "Did you call the complaint?" Noah blurted out, "Yes, it's me, complaining about the woman upstairs. Look at what she has hung up on the terrace." Elaine said coldly, "How come my own hat is hung on the terrace? Can you still manage it?" The 4 property managers also said helplessly after reading it, "Gentlemen, the owner's terrace is the owner's private domain. In theory, no matter what hangs on there, we can't interfere with it unless it's illegal. But others. It's not illegal to put on a hat, it's people's freedom. Because of your mother." Noah whirled around dryly. If these 20 green hats were hung here all day long, wouldn't he be mad at Elaine? Several property managers were scolded by him. Naturally they were very dissatisfied, but they still said politely, "Excuse me, gentlemen, this matter is not in the management of our property." After that, they got into the battery car and drove away. Elaine laughed more wildly on the terrace. "Ha ha ha, Noah, now you can't help it, let me tell you, my green hats will always be hanging here, and I will buy another 20 of them tomorrow. Here, I let you open your eyes every day and you can see a lot of green hats fluttering in the wind, fluttering with the wind. You. Noah was so angry that he almost vomited blood. At this time, Charlie and Claire also went to the terrace on the second floor and took a look. After they figured out what was going on, they both looked at each other helplessly and sighed. Claire couldn't help sighing, "Charlie, you said it's not good for Mom to do this." Charlie smiled indifferently, and said, "In fact, there is nothing good or bad. Didn't they treat us too much before? When they knew what problem we encountered, they also desperately mocked us. You forgot that at the Thompson sales office, how did the family laugh at us? And when your studio opened, didn't they come to mock us too? Now that Mom wants to ridicule and go back, I think it's just to use her own way to treat her body. In the final analysis, it is their own responsibility." Noah and Mrs. Wilson almost collapsed because of Elaine's anger, but they couldn't do anything about her behavior. They turned their heads away in anger. Noah cursed as he walked, "Elaine, let me find a chance in the future, I must kill her." The old Mrs. Wilson angrily said, "Don't talk about her for now. Tomorrow we will quickly take the Bhishoriya to get rid of the fraudulent in her stomach. This is really a great shame that we have never seen in the Wilson family in a century." Noah also had a look of hatred, gritted his teeth and said, "Mom, don't worry, I will go with her tomorrow." Back home, both Harold and Wendy had just gotten up. They were in the living room, waiting for Horiya to cook, hungry. Horiya had some money left from selling coffee machines last time. Today, she intends to ease the family relationship, so she bought a lot of fresh abalone and prepared an abalone feast for her family. This pile of abalone cost thousands just for the ingredients, and to Horiya, it was indeed bleeding. When the old Mrs. Wilson saw Horiya buying back abalone, her first thought was that she was very happy. After all, she had good food to eat at noon. But then the Lady Wilson thought of a detail and asked Horiya, "Where did you get the money to buy these abalones?" Horiya lied and said, "I borrowed a little money from a friend while playing cards and never paid it back. Isn't this tight on hand? I asked her to come over." Old Mrs. Wilson nodded gently, and said coldly, "Transfer all the remaining money to WeChat to my account." From now on, all the money in this family will be managed by me, including the money that Mr. Wu invested in our Wilson Group. I also have the sole discretion to decide. If anyone dares to hide private money behind my back, sorry, they can leave this house." Horia immediately laughed and said, "Mom, don't worry, I will transfer all the remaining money to you, and I won't keep a single cent." The old Mrs. Wilson looked at Noah and said coldly, "Noah, you hid more than 10 million private money before, but you didn't want to give me life or death. In the end, all the money was lost, so from now on, if you dare to hide it again private money, don't blame me for being an impolite mother, have you heard?" Noah nodded his head and said respectfully, "I know, Mom, don't worry, I won't dare to hide private money anymore." The old Mrs. Wilson nodded in satisfaction. It seems that the crisis of the Wilson family has helped to consolidate her position as the ruler of the family. Soon, Horia brought up a lot of various abalones. Abalone feast. Naturally every dish is abalone. Steamed abalone vermicelli, as well as braised abalone, abalone sashimi, abalone soup, etc. Because the ingredients are good, every dish tastes very good. However, at the dinner table, Horia herself had an ordinary bowl of Yangchun egg noodles, and she did not eat any abalone. Wendy was a little surprised, and asked her, "Mom, why don't you eat abalone? Why don't you eat a bite after doing so hard?" Horia is ashamed to tell the truth. How can she tell her daughter that she cannot eat seafood because of various venereal diseases? So she can only say, "My stomach is not very good these past 2 days, and I can't eat seafood." Noah had just received a huge stimulus at Elaine's place. He was so angry that he glared at her and said coldly, "As long as you want to eat seafood, you serve it too. What do you do with this seafood? Is that for the wild species?" Horia was extremely embarrassed when she heard Noah's insults. She was angry but she didn't dare to speak out. She still hopes to have a family and everything will be happy, so she wants to take a step back and hope that Noah can accept her as soon as possible. Noah hated Horia. But he hates Horia, not abalone. So while eating abalone, he said coldly, "A woman like you who is not obedient to men will stay in this house in the future, and she must be a good servant." Horia had no choice but to eat her own noodles without talking. In fact, Horia at this time didn't know that her husband had already been infected with a venereal disease. If she knew, she would definitely not make such an abalone dinner for her husband. She knew that Noah likes abalone the most, so she made such an abalone banquet to please him, but she was scolded bloody by him. Noah turned his grief and anger into appetite and ate a dozen large abalones by himself. Because he was upset, he even finished a small bottle of wine and drank it. The previous owner of this house left a lot of good wine in the cellar in the basement downstairs. There are red wine, white wine, and champagne. When the Wu family bought a house, they wanted a package price, so they left all these wines. Noah took out a bottle of mutai from the wine cellar and pulled Harold. The two of them drank more than a kilogram in total. After eating and drinking, Noah returned to his bedroom, planning to take a nap. However, when he lay down, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. What's wrong? His place is really itchy. Seafood is a hair item, and liquor is also a very powerful hair item. Together, these two things are a perfect match. Noah was itchy at first, but he couldn't stop it. He grabbed desperately, and even the grabbing was a bit broken and bleeding, but still nothing got better. The bone-erupting itching had already made him unbearable. He hurriedly turned over from the bed and went to see Mrs. Wilson in a hurry. When he saw Mrs. Wilson, he was a little impatient and said, "Mom, give me some money. I have to go to the hospital now." Old Mrs. Wilson frowned and asked, "What's wrong with you? Why are you going to the hospital? Don't you know it costs money to go to the hospital?" After experiencing all kinds of disasters before, the current old Mrs. Wilson regards money more than anything else. Noah said with an expression of pain, I feel very uncomfortable, so I have to go to the hospital to have a look." The old Mrs. Wilson asked him, "How do you go back to tell me in advance?" Noah said in embarrassment, "Well, it's not easy to speak up, Mom, just give me some money and let me go to the hospital for a look." Old Mrs. Wilson exclaimed, "Could you be sick from that aspect?" Noah didn't expect that his mother would be able to guess it all at once, and said embarrassedly, "I can't be sure now, so I want to go to the hospital." The old Mrs. Wilson looked terrified, and blurted out, "Did you in Horia a few days ago?" "This." Noah hesitated for a moment, and then gently nodded, "When I was in Wu's house, that happened between me and her that day." Noah's voice became smaller and smaller, but the Lady Wilson still understood. Upon hearing this, the Lady Wilson said nervously, "Oh, that Horia was in the Black Coal Kill. Who knows what wild man she was with? I think she is not only pregnant with someone else's wild species, but also came back with all kinds of diseases. Come. I'll accompany you to the hospital for a thorough investigation." When Noah heard this, he also guessed that he was probably infected by Horia from the disease, and he became even more annoyed. But the irritation turned to more irritation. Now for him, the top priority is to go to the hospital to check if he's sick. So he hurriedly said, "Oh, Mom, how embarrassed to let you accompany me with this kind of thing, and I can do it myself if you give me the money." Old Mrs. Wilson said earnestly, "No, if I don't go, I will always feel uneasy. Don't say anything, I will go with you, and go now." After that, the Lady Wilson got up immediately, ready to go out. Noah had no choice but to nod his head and left home with his mother helplessly. Just when Noah and Mrs. Wilson went to the hospital, the Wu family's only remaining subordinate in Chenbai Mountain finally found an opportunity and got into the morgue of the local hospital. He spent a lot of money to bribe the gatekeeper of the morgue, and the other party made an exception to let him in. He called on the 8 people who died in the avalanche of Chenbai Mountain, and said to him, "You can see it, but you must be psychologically prepared. The death of these 8 people is very miserable." The Wu family's men nodded, and opened the 8 freezers for corpses one by one. When the body bag was opened, the Wu family's subordinate was shocked and stunned. Although the death of the 8 great heavenly kings was indeed miserable, he could still recognize that these 8 corpses were the 8 great heavenly kings. So he took out his mobile phone, took a photo of the 8th heavenly king's body, and sent it to Regner. At this time, Regner was waiting for news in Suzhou. Although the Wu family has determined and affirmed the fact that the 8 heavenly kings have been killed in their hearts, everyone still has the last gleam of hope. But when these photos were posted, all the hopes of the Wu family collapsed completely. The 8 heavenly kings are really dead and died of an avalanche. This is too unacceptable. Sending out 8 top masters over there, before seeing the enemy die in an avalanche first, isn't this bullshit? Elder Wu also suffered a blow. The 8 heavenly kings have followed him for so many years and started this business with him. Deep down in his heart, he has a deep feeling for the 8 heavenly kings. Now that the 8 great heavenly kings were all killed overnight, he would really not accept this kind of result for a while. After seeing the photos, Roger was shocked and felt that something was wrong. He opened his mouth and said, "Dad, Grandpa, why do I feel that the 8 great heavenly kings have so many injuries that look wrong? If they were in a car and had an avalanche, then they would most likely be caught in the car with snow. The injuries on their bodies should also be mostly crush injuries, but how I look at them now, they all seem to have been injured." As he said, he zoomed in on the photo of Lin Yuan's right arm and said, "Look at Lin Yuan's right arm as a whole bloody, it doesn't look like it's being crushed. There is also Iron Fist. His right arm was almost the same as Lin Yuan's right arm at the time. But other people's right arm did not suffer such injuries. If everyone had suffered an avalanche in the car, everyone would suffer. Injuries, the types should be similar, there shouldn't be such a big gap." Elder Wu, as well as all the Wu family members, showed extreme horror at this moment. Elder Wu tremblingly asked, "Roger, you mean, the 8 great heavenly kings were killed?" The Wu family did not want to believe that the 8 heavenly kings were beaten to death. Because if this is true, it proves that they have a very powerful enemy in the dark. But they have no idea who this enemy is. The Wu family didn't believe Charlie, and the people around him had this kind of strength. Regner even speculated that whether the 8 great heavenly kings went to Qinbei Mountain this time and accidentally provoked the local master of seclusion in Qinbei Mountain. Elder Wu also thinks this thing is very possible. He is now deeply distressed. The 8 heavenly kings are not only his old friends, but also a major reliance on the prosperity of the Wu family. Now that this reliance is gone, it is likely to cause an earthquake in the family. As expected, Mr. Wu did not expect it. The Wu family dispatched the 8 heavenly kings to Qinbei Mountain, and all the halberd-breaking events spread throughout the region within a short period of time. But all powerful family owners watched the fire from the other side, watching the jokes of the Wu family. The rise of the Wu family depends on 2 things. The first is that when Mr. Wu was young, he was courageous and strategic, stirring up the Oris Hill Sea of commerce, and pushing the Wu family step by step to where it is today. The second is the 8 heavenly kings. The 8 heavenly kings are the right arm of Mr. Wu, as well as the Wu family's strategic weapon to deter foreign enemies. Anyone who pulls out is the mighty power of the Megatron. Relying on the 8 heavenly kings, the Wu family established a reputation in Oris Hill, and no one dared to make bad ideas. Otherwise, with the financial resources of the Wu family, the interested people have long been jealous, and they want to rush to tear the Wu family to pieces. Today, all the 8 heavenly kings have died in Qinbei Mountain, and all the families in the south of the Yangtze River are all thinking together. In the current Wu family, Mr. Wu is bedridden, and the 8 heavenly kings died in battle. Who doesn't want to get a share? For a time, the situation in the south of the Yangtze River changed, and the forces in Suzhou were turbulent, which pushed the Wu family into the forefront. On the other side, Noah and Mrs. Wilson also came to Oris Hill People's Hospital. After arriving at the hospital, he hung up in andrology department. What embarrassed him was that he was already in his 40s and 50s, and it was embarrassing to see andrologist with his mother. However, Mrs. Wilson is so overbearing. If others don't let them ask about the things she wants to do, then she will definitely fight with them to the end. The mother and the son waited at the entrance of the clinic. Noah desperately endured the extreme itching. After waiting for more than 20 minutes, he finally yelled Noah's name. So, Noah stood up and said to Mrs. Wilson, "Mom, wait for me at the door, and I will go in by myself." Old Mrs. Wilson said immediately, "No, I want to go in too." Noah looked very embarrassed. How can he take Mom to the doctor to see this kind of thing? Old Mrs. Wilson gritted her teeth and said, "What? Do you want to hide this from me?" Noah said hurriedly, "I definitely can't hide from you, Mom. It's just that after a while, the doctor will check on me. It would be too embarrassing to be in front of you." "Don't worry, I will definitely know the results of the check. I'll give you the details." The old Mrs. Wilson nodded, and said, "All inspections and results must be shown to me. Dare to hide that, I will never forgive you." Noah stepped into the consulting room while getting up and struggling to endure the itching. In the consulting room, a doctor older than him was sitting in front of the computer when he saw him coming in, and he asked, "Why is it uncomfortable?" Noah hurriedly said, "Doctor, I constantly feel itchy in my place, and I don't know what's going on, so I want you to see it." The doctor had seen more similar cases, so he nodded and said, "Take off your pants." Although Noah was a little embarrassed, he still took off his pants obediently. The doctor just glanced at it and exclaimed, "You seem to be in a serious situation. Didn't you go to that kind of place?" Don't mention how embarrassing Noah is. Wherever he has been to a romantic place, he is nothing more than the sound of the waves with his wife. But he changed his mind to think about what the doctor meant. Doesn't it mean that his wife Horia is similar to the woman in special place? But he can only say to the doctor, "Doctor, I haven't been to any special place." The doctor didn't believe what he said at all, because every man who came to see a doctor with an STD would not admit that he went to the special place. So he said lightly, "They are all men, and I can understand many things. It is not uncommon for your age to go to special places occasionally, but I still have to give you some suggestions." Noah hurriedly said, "Doctor, please tell me." The doctor said lightly, "First of all, you must protect yourself when you go to that kind of place. Don't be refreshed for a while. Don't do anything without protection. Sometimes condoms are not only to protect women, but to protect men." Noah nodded and said, "I see, thank you doctor, do you have any more?" The doctor said again, "In addition, it is recommended to try to go to larger, more formal, and high-end places. Although many roadside warblers are very cheap, their bodies carry many venereal diseases and germs. Maybe there are AIDS. Say you are so old, in order to save so much money, why bother to toss yourself like this?" Noah's face is green. Doesn't this mean that in the eyes of the doctor, Horia is as dirty as that roadside warbler? At this time, the doctor gave him a meaningful look and said, "You see, in order to save a little money, you are now suffering from a whole body disease. I think you need at least tens of thousands for treatment. Isn't this not worth the loss? Noah asked in horror, Doctor, what's wrong with me? What is this? The doctor said, in my experience, first of all gonorrhea and syphilis are indispensable, because your body's erythema is very special. I have been in the doctor field for so many years and I can't read it wrong. Hearing these two diseases, Noah only felt that the sky was spinning, and he almost fainted. He never dreamed that Horia would have so many diseases. At this time, the doctor said, I think there should be serious inflammation in your area. If you don't treat it in time, it is very likely that your prostate and your reproductive system will be endangered. So I will prescribe some tests for you as soon as possible. Do it and wait for the results. We will be conducting targeted treatment based on your actual situation. As he said, the doctor sighed and said, the most worrying thing is actually AIDS. Because AIDS has been latent for a long time now, it cannot be distinguished from the naked eye. If there is AIDS, it can't be cured. It's a lifetime thing. Noah was about to collapse at this time. Ever since Horia came back, he has only heard the waves with her once, but he did not expect to infect himself with so many diseases once. Had it not been for Regner to support her, she would have to be killed himself when he went back. When Noah came out of the ward with a bunch of test application forms, the Lady Wilson hurried forward and asked, What did the doctor say? How is the situation? Is there anything serious? Noah didn't want to talk to the Lady Wilson at first, but when he thought that the Lady Wilson would have to look at various inspection reports when he looked back, he couldn't hide it, so he cried and said, The doctor told me that it is very likely to have gonorrhea and syphilis. There are some inflammations, and the possibility of AIDS is not even ruled out. When Mrs. Wilson heard this, she looked terrified, and subconsciously stepped back. Noah thought that the Lady Wilson was frightened, and hurriedly stepped forward to help her without standing still. As a result, the old Mrs. Wilson hurriedly waved her hands and said in horror, You stay away from me and don't touch me. AIDS is terrible. I haven't lived enough yet. Noah's expression was extremely ugly, and he realized that his mother was afraid of infecting herself. His own mother is really realistic. So he had to sigh and said, Mom, in this case, then you can wait for me here, and I will check it myself. Mrs. Wilson hurriedly said, Oh, I'm old and a little tired. I'm going home first. After checking the results, remember to take pictures and send them to my WeChat as soon as possible. In fact, the old Mrs. Wilson is not tired, she is really scared. For her the most feared thing is death. Anything related to death, or that might make her die or make her life short, she will stay far away and stay away. Now that she heard that her eldest son might get AIDS, the first thing she thought of was not the safety of her son, but herself. Noah also knew what kind of person his mother was. He sighed helplessly and said, It doesn't matter if you go back, but you have to give me some money, otherwise, how can I pay the examination fee later, in case the doctor wants to give it to me? What about prescribing medicine? Medical expenses are still needed. While walking outside, Mrs. Wilson said without looking back, I will send you 10,000 on WeChat right away. If it is not enough, you can tell me. After speaking, people have already passed out andrology. Noah's heart was depressed, and his own mother was so selfish at all times, and she really did not disappoint him at all. However, the most important question for him right now is to quickly confirm what diseases he has suffered. Gonorrhea and syphilis are not big things. The big deal is to spend more trouble and suffer more. As long as he doesn't get AIDS, then everything is easy to say. He felt that if he really got AIDS, his life would be over, so he could just go home and kill Horia. Noah stayed in the hospital for an afternoon. After doing a lot of various examinations, the final conclusion was almost the same as the doctor's initial judgment. First of all, gonorrhea and syphilis are confirmed. Secondly, urethritis is also very serious. In addition, there is some ulceration and suppuration. Fortunately, there is no AIDS. Then the doctor immediately prepared a treatment plan for him, starting with a 14-day first-stage treatment cycle. Starting today, for the next 14 days, he will come to the hospital for infusions every day, and he will have to infuse 5 or 6 bottles every day. Noah hurriedly asked, "Doctor, can the medicine be used today to stop itching for me? To tell you the truth, I'm so itching right now. It's so irritating. I don't know what's going on. Itchy, the more you scratch, the more itchy." The doctor said, "This kind of disease is very itchy. It is originally ulcerated, purulent and inflamed, and the lesion is in the sensitive area. It must be very itchy, but you can rest assured that if you are given medicine today, this itching will go down." Then the doctor said, "From now on, you must avoid seafood, spicy, alcohol, and smoking. Otherwise, it will greatly aggravate the condition." When Noah heard this, he immediately said to the doctor, "Doctor, I ate more than 10 or 20 abalones at noon, and I drank more than half a kilogram of Mao Tai. There will be nothing wrong, right?" After listening to the doctor, he immediately said with a straight face, "You want to die? Don't you know that these are hair things? You still eat seafood, you can't eat kelp, you know?" Noah said with a sad face, "Hey, I don't know. I want to know that I have these diseases. If you beat me to death, I dare not eat or drink." The doctor sighed and said, "Okay, there is no treatment today. You can go back." Noah became anxious and blurted out, "Why can't the doctor treat it today? I'm almost itching to death. You can treat me quickly, or I will definitely scratch it." The doctor shook his head and said, "You have to inject a lot of antibiotics for the treatment of this disease, but how do you inject antibiotics when you drink alcohol? Have you ever heard of a disulfiram-like reaction? Go in with cephalosporin antibiotics here, and immediately when react, it will kill you. Do you want to itch an extra day, or do you want to die here today?" Noah almost cried. "You can't use medicine if you itch like this bird, isn't it killing your own?" So he begged, "Doctor, how much do you give me some anti-itch medicine, otherwise I can't handle it?" The doctor sighed and said, "Well, let me prescribe some cleansing liquid for you. You can go back and use it first, and it will have some anti-itching effect." After speaking, the doctor said again, "Yes, I have to tell you not to scratch, because it is already damaged, and it will be more serious if it is scratched. The pus and blood that flow out contain a lot of bacteria. It may cause your affected area to spread, and the situation becomes more and more serious. If the area of the rupture becomes larger and larger, a serious infection may lead to sepsis, which can also be life-threatening. Noah wiped a tear from his eyes. It's a crime. Well, how can you encounter such a thing? The doctor sighed with emotion and said, after all, we should start with personal hygiene, and in that aspect of life, we must pay more attention to protecting ourselves. Don't go out to such street places to find flowers. Noah couldn't say why he got the disease, so he could only nod his head. Thank you, doctor, I know. The doctor hummed, and then asked him, by the way, I think you should be married at your age? Noah nodded. The doctor saw him nod and confessed, and said, you should take your lover to the hospital for a check. This disease is extremely contagious. If you are recruited outside, it will be easy to infect your lover when you return home. Noah was more uncomfortable than death at this time, and his anger hit the sky. I infect her? These are all her infections. This BTCH. I must kill her when I go back. Noah tried to endure the itching, and when he rushed home, Horia was cooking dinner. Seeing that Noah liked to eat abalone made by herself at noon, she was ready to continue to please him, so in the afternoon when Noah went out with the Lady Wilson, she went to the vegetable market again. This time, she bought a large king crab for Noah. The king crab was big and delicious, and it was Noah's favorite. And this king crab is not cheap. She bought the big one, which cost more than 2,000. Originally, Horia had no money, so she gave all the money to the Lady Wilson, but she had an idea and stole a high-end imported cooking machine from the kitchen. By the way, she ordered 2 bottles of mutai from the underground wine cellar and took them out. Sold it for 20,000. Horia planned that the remaining money would not be reported to the Lady Wilson, and she would save it to go to the hospital for an abortion tomorrow, and treat her venereal disease by the way. When the Lady Wilson went home, she didn't care to settle the account with Horia. She bought a lot of disinfectant on the road. When she got home, she went back to her room and began to give her room, corridor, bathroom, and terrace all-round disinfection and sterilization. After receiving Noah's inspection report and confirming that he did not have AIDS, the Lady Wilson was still not at ease, so she wiped all the places she could touch with alcohol. Noah entered the door with a black face at this time. As soon as he entered the door, he smelled fishy and fresh crabs. He was wondering. Horia came out of the kitchen wearing an apron and said with a smile, "Oh, my husband, are you back? I steamed you your favorite king crab. You want to eat more tonight? If you like to drink half a bottle of mutai to moisturize it." Noah was already half to death, but when he heard this, his whole body almost burst. At noon, you stinky lady cheated me. At night, you still want to eat seafood and drink liquor. By the way, I haven't counted you on the fact that you infected me with a disease. Thinking of this, Noah rushed forward immediately, slapped Horiya's face with a slap, and directly knocked her to the ground. Before Horiya could react, Noah rode on her, angrily and bowed left and right. The slap was almost as if he didn't need money, and he slapped to death. Horiya was beaten up and yelled, and the entire villa was like a pig farm. Harold and Wendy rushed out of their respective rooms, and when they saw their parents were fighting again, they hurried forward. Harold couldn't help saying, "Dad, what's the matter with you? Haven't you separated from mother? Why are you fighting again? Yes, Dad. Wendy also said hurriedly. Mr. Wu specifically explained that the two of you must not fight each other. What if he blames it? Noah slammed Horiya's face with a fist, and said angrily, I'm going to Grandma of Wu. Even if he's the king of heaven today, he can't stop me from beating her. As he said, he scolded angrily, You stinky shameless peach, you infected me with a disease, and you deliberately made seafood for me. What do you mean? You want to kill me? You give it to me. With so many green hat things, I haven't even calculated it yet, so you dare to slap me again. When Horiya heard this, she was immediately stunned. She cried and said, My husband, I really don't know, you are sick. If I know, if you kill me, I can't make seafood for you. While pumping her, Noah cursed with gritted teeth, You still pretend to me that you don't get sick yourself, don't you know it yourself? Horiya cried, I did get sick, but I didn't expect to be able to infect you. After all, we have only been there once since I came back. Since then, every time you tried to have S3X with me, did I not refuse you every time? I lied to you, insisted on doing things with me. I also found all kinds of excuses to refuse. Why? Isn't it just because I'm afraid of infecting you? Noah slapped again and yelled, You infected me, don't you know? Harold and Wendy were about to collapse almost embarrassingly. Listening to this, Mother has infected Father with a venereal disease. Where did this venereal disease come from? Of course they both knew it well. STDs must come from the same source as the child in the mother's stomach. Harold, a shameless person, felt hot on his face at this time. What do you think this is? Wendy was also extremely helpless. At this time she didn't know if it was time for them to fight. It's really a human tragedy. Noah grabbed Horiya by the head and beat her for more than 10 minutes, until he knocked Horiya until she fainted, and then stopped out of breath. Horiya was already in a coma at this time. The old Mrs. Wilson just sterilized the entire room. She walked down and saw the following scene. She immediately said to Noah, How can you beat her to death? Noah said aggrievedly, Mom, this stinky lady has cheated me so badly. I can't beat her up yet? Old Mrs. Wilson complained, You can teach her to get it, how can you fight so hard? What if Mr. Wu finds out and blames you? What if Mr. Wu feels that our family is not worthwhile? You are not. Are you joking about the future and future of your whole family? Harold suddenly understood at this time and blurted out, Yeah, Dad, if Mr. Wu knows, what can we do? If he gets angry, he might withdraw all the money from the villa and the investment in our Wilson Group. By then we will have to live on the streets again. Noah's expression went black and white, and he said depressedly, Okay, call an ambulance first and take her to the hospital. Isn't this stinky lady going to have a baby? It just happened to be together this time. Horiya was rushed to the hospital overnight, where she was rescued before she recovered. After Regner heard his assistant report this incident, his body trembled. This family, I have seen it, the dirtiest, most disgusting, stupid family in the world. 5 people are refreshing their lower limit all the time. He even found sadly that he had used all tactics to deal with Charlie now. No matter it was the inferior Wilson family, or the 8 heavenly kings of Dragon and Phoenix among the people, it seemed that there was no threat to Charlie. Even the 8 heavenly kings are not as good as the Wilson family. At least the Wilson family members are still alive, but when the 8 heavenly kings go out, they all died. Now the Wu family has lost the 8 heavenly kings, which can be described as internal and external troubles. Coupled with the previous reputational influence, Wu's stock has been falling continuously. Now their market value has saved more than 200 billion, all the way down to less than 100 billion. The Wu family now can't even compare to the Song family in terms of strength. Moreover, it is certain that the Wu family is no longer the first family in the region. If this continues, it is likely to fall out of the first-line family sequence. By that time, the Wu family had really fallen into a hurry and could never get up again. Roger was also very depressed. He liked Warnya very much, and thought Warnya would be a high climber if she married him. But now it seems that if Warnya marries him, it is his own high climb. He couldn't help asking Regner, "Dad, do you think there is hope for my affairs with Warnya?" Hearing his son's question, Regner felt mixed. Not long ago, he thought that his son could see Warnya, that was the glory of the Song family. But now, he felt to his heart that Warnya couldn't have a good view of his son. The current Wu family has not only shrunk seriously, but more importantly, its reputation has been completely ruined. In addition, the 8 heavenly kings died of Chenbai Mountain for unknown reasons. How can the Wu family compare with the Song family now? So he doesn't have any hope at all now that he can marry Warnya to his home as a daughter-in-law. It's a pity that his son, and he still seems a little unaware. When the Wu family was in its heyday, people didn't agree, let alone now. Think about it carefully. Not only is this son not self-aware, he also lacks control and understanding of the situation. It seems that the old master is right, the Wu family is really inferior to one generation. Now the Wu family is in his own hands and it has shrunk by half. If it is passed to his son in the future, it might become a third-rate family. So he told Roger, "It's not the time to deal with the love of children. Let's first find a way to let the Wu family tide over this difficulty. Once the Wu family is relieved, we can continue to discuss the marriage with the Song family." Roger nodded and sighed, "If we can be bound to the Song family, then our life will be better." Regner sighed, thinking that his son would really think about something. No one else wants to play with you when you are beautiful, let alone when you are in trouble. But he didn't tell his son this, because the family already looked like this. He didn't want to continue to dampen his confidence and enthusiasm. In fact, this is where Regner is inferior to the old master. In other words, this is the key to the weaker generation of the Wu family. When Elder Wu came out to enter the world by himself, he had to face everything himself and carry everything himself. But after he worked hard for a career, he began to feel sorry for his son, and felt a lot of unnecessary suffering, so naturally there was no need for his son to taste it. He had a strong foundation that he had laid out for him. But the key is that the older generation of entrepreneurs, the reason why they are so awesome, is because they are too good at enduring hardship. For people like Mr. Wu, it was really rolling in the swamp, and tigers snatching food. Only in this way can you develop a person's true great ability. It's a pity that when Regner arrived, they had no chance to withstand such a test. By the generation of Roger, he didn't even know what he suffered. After Charlie came back, he led a peaceful life again. However, he was always thinking about doing a good job in the pharmaceutical business, so he called Miking's son Paul, and Paul revisited Wei's Pharmaceuticals with him. Wei's Pharmaceutical is one of the top Chinese patent medicine companies in Oris Hill, and has developed many Chinese patent medicines that sell well across the country. However, in the past few years, Chinese patent medicines have been declining across the country, and Campo medicines represented by Japan and South Korea have gradually become the mainstream. Whether it is Chinese patent medicine or Campo medicine, the real core is the classic traditional medicine left by the ancestors of China. Charlie has many very powerful prescriptions. First of all, it might even cause a major earthquake, so he was not prepared to shock the world. He just prepared to come up with some classic prescriptions to deal with daily diseases, and let Wei's Pharmaceutical make a few best-selling drugs. But before giving the prescription to Liang, the shares must be changed. These prescriptions are truly invaluable, and a single prescription may be able to exchange several or even a dozen Wei's pharmaceutical wealth. As soon as Paul received his call, he heard that he was asking for his help, and he did not ask what it was, so he immediately agreed. The two met early the next morning at Thomson. Jacob knew that he was going to meet Paul, and his heart immediately itched. Since Elaine came back these days, he has always wanted to see Miking, but he has never dared to see her. Because he was afraid that Elaine will know that Miking returned to China, the vixen's skills exploded, and then will go out to trouble Miking. So after he knew that Charlie was going to see Paul, he asked him privately, "Good son-in-law, you are going out with Paul this time on errands, are you going to Aunt?" Charlie smiled helplessly and said, "Of course Aunt will not be there, Dad. If you want to see Aunt, please ask her yourself." Jacob said awkwardly, "I dare not." Charlie sighed and said, "Then I can't help but." Jacob pleaded, "Good son-in-law, can't you find a chance to form a game and let me meet your aunt?" Charlie said, "It can be, but I'm afraid someone will get angry when they find out." Jacob hurriedly said, "Don't tell her not to do it." Charlie said earnestly, "Even if you don't tell her about this kind of thing for a while, she will know it sooner or later, and she will definitely be very angry if she knows that we did these things behind her back." As he was talking, Charlie's cell phone rang. It was Paul's call. He just wanted to get rid of his chattering old master, so he hurriedly said to him, "Dad, I won't tell you yet. Paul has already come to pick me up. I have to go now." After speaking, Charlie hurried out without waiting for him to speak. When he arrived outside the main entrance of Thomson, Paul had already driven his Rolls-Royce and was waiting here. Seeing Charlie came out, he hurriedly waved to him, and said with respect, "Mr. Wade, I am here." Charlie nodded, walked to the front, opened the car door and sat in. Paul wore a very formal suit and tie today. "I can see that his suit is still very good, it should be tailored by some big brands or high-end tailors." Paul asked Charlie, "Mr. Wade, what cooperation do they have with you at Wei's Pharmacy today?" Charlie said, "Wei's Pharmaceuticals is going to transfer 80% of the shares to me. I want you to be my legal counsel to help me complete all contracts and legal procedures." Paul was shocked when he heard this. He has heard of Ways Pharmaceuticals. Although this company is not among the top 500 in the country, it is at least a large company with a market value of several billion. Is Charlie going to acquire 80% of the company's shares? So he asked Charlie, "Mr. Wade, what is the purchase price of your 80% shares?" Charlie said indifferently, "I don't need to spend money to acquire 80% of the shares, but I want to provide them with prescriptions." "Ah? Doesn't it cost a penny, just make prescriptions?" Paul felt unbelievable. After all, it is a billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. Charlie doesn't give people a penny, and takes away 80% of others' shares based on prescriptions. This is too awesome. What kind of prescription is needed to be so valuable? Yes. Charlie nodded and said, "Trust me, my prescription is more valuable than their pharmaceutical factory." Paul looked at Charlie in shock. Although it felt unbelievable, he didn't feel that Charlie was bragging. So he hurriedly started the car and drove to Ways Pharmaceutical. Ways Pharmaceuticals has a production base in the southeast of Oris Hill. In addition to all the medicines produced here, their management also works here. In Ways' own production base, there are workshops, warehouses, office buildings, and dormitories. As soon as Paul parked the car in front of the Ways Pharmaceutical office building, Liang was already waiting here. Charlie was in Chenbai Mountain that day and gave Liang a huge shock. So that Liang already regarded Charlie as the god he believed in this life, and had a strong urge to go through water and fire in his heart. Respectfully welcomed Charlie and Paul to his office. Liang immediately took out the contract template he had drawn up and said to Charlie, "Mr. Wade, I already have drawn up the contract. You can ask your lawyer to go over it and see if there are any problems." Speaking of this, he opened a contract and introduced, "The main clause in this contract is that on behalf of the Wei Group, I will unconditionally transfer 80% of the shares to you." Charlie didn't expect Liang to be so simple. So he nodded and said, "Let Paul go with your lawyer about the contract." Liang hurriedly said, "Then I will let the lawyer in now." Then he made a call and several lawyers from the pharmaceutical factory walked in. Paul worked very professionally and immediately confronted them with the details of the contract. The contract was drawn up quickly and Charlie and Liang signed the contract together. After signing, Charlie has become the largest shareholder of Ways Pharmaceuticals, owning 80% of Ways Pharmaceuticals. Because Charlie has hired Paul as his lawyer, Paul's name is also written in the lawyer column in this corporate equity transfer contract. However, Charlie was a little surprised that what Paul left on the contract turned out to be his Chinese name. And his Chinese name is actually Han Mukan. This surprised him too much. Paul's Chinese name followed his mother Miking's last name, which did not surprise him. To his surprise, the last two words of the name, Mu-kun. The word admiration alone seems to have nothing to do with feelings. But in ancient Chinese, the word mu has a very deep meaning. It is the original meaning of attachment, yearning, longing, and also pointing to admiration. And let alone the word kun, it must be Jacob, his father-in-law. In this way, Paul's Chinese name probably means, Miking is attached to Jacob, Miking yearns for Jacob, Miking misses Jacob, and even Miking loves Jacob deeply. He felt that the name reflected Miking's full and deep affection, and at the same time he felt that the name highlighted Miking's full literary accomplishments. If she was not into the language, then she would give Paul a Chinese name, probably Han Sekan, Han Niankan, and Han Ikan. However, she just used a low-key and deep, and even a long-standing Han Mukan. At this moment, even Charlie felt that miking was really amazing. But all this was just what Charlie thought in his own heart, and he didn't tell Paul about it. But he guessed that a smart person like Paul should also know what his own Chinese name means. Here, Liang respectfully asked him after signing, "Mr. Wade, is Ways Pharma going to change its name now?" He felt that Charlie is already a major shareholder of Ways Pharmaceuticals, and it seems inappropriate to continue to call Ways Pharmaceuticals. Charlie also thinks that the company he controls is called Ways Pharmaceutical, which is really strange. So he thought for a while, and said, "Then let's change the name to JX Pharmaceutical, JX short for Juxian." Charlie felt that his ability to master so many classic medical techniques left behind by his ancestors was entirely the result of the 9 profound heavenly scriptures, so he simply named JX Pharmaceutical, which can be regarded as his own contribution to the 9 profound heavenly scriptures. Although Yang didn't know what the word Juxian meant, but since Mr. Wade had already said so, he naturally wouldn't have any opinions, so he immediately said, "Mr. Wade, then I will submit a statement today and register at the same time the trademark of JX Pharmaceutical." Charlie nodded and said, "You told me that Kobayashi Pharmaceutical's stomach powder was very suppressing you, didn't it?" "Yes." Liang sighed and said, "Kobayashi Vicen is now sold throughout Asia. The pressure on us is very high." Charlie said to Liang, "Kobayashi Pharmaceutical is nothing. I'll give you a prescription for treating stomach problems. After you produce it, you will call it Juvicin. Did you bring paper and pen? I will write it for you. After you go back, you will produce a prescription according to this formula and put it on the market as soon as possible." Liang was overjoyed, but he didn't expect Charlie to draw up a prescription himself, quickly took out a pen and paper, and handed it respectfully. Charlie thought for a moment, and selected a pill formula from the 9 profound heaven classics. He chose this because the medicinal materials used in this formula are relatively easy to find. Although this is only the primary prescription for stomach problems in the 9 profound heavenly secrets, this medicine has miraculous effects on ordinary people. As long as Liang can produce this stomach medicine, it is definitely not a problem to press down the competitor like Kobayashi Pharmaceutical, so he wrote down the prescription and the ratio and handed it to Liang. After Liang took the notebook and looked at the formula written on it, he couldn't help being surprised. Liang has also studied some traditional medicine and tried to discover ancient Chinese prescriptions, so he has some understanding of the prescriptions. However, looking at Charlie's formula, it seems that many medicinal materials have nothing to do with the treatment of stomach diseases, so it still feels a little suspenseful. The prescription Charlie took out was the prescription in the 9 profound sky classics. The 9 profound sky classics was originally a sacred book. The prescriptions that can be recorded here are absolutely awesome, and most people can see them and understand. It's really weird. However, although Liang couldn't understand this prescription, where exactly was the god, he didn't dare to doubt Charlie in his heart. Liang put a lot of emphasis on the prescription, ready to go back to arrange the production first, and try the effect of the medicine. He settled the contract with Paul and left from Way's Pharmaceutical, which is now JX Pharmaceutical. Paul is full of respect for Charlie beside him. He thinks Charlie is too unpredictable. Take any prescription, and others are willing to give him the entire group. May I ask, who else in the world can have such an ability? No wonder, all the people in Oris Hill who have a face and respect him. He is Mr. Wade for a reason. Moreover, when they mentioned Mr. Wade, they would give an evaluation, a true dragon in the world. On the way back, Charlie asked Paul, "By the way, what has Aunt been up to these days?" Paul said, "Mother recently. She likes to run to senior colleges. An old friend of hers invited her to go there and be a visiting professor at senior colleges, specializing in general education for senior citizens." "Oh?" Charlie said in surprise, "Then Aunt is professor now?" Paul smiled and said, "It's not a professor. The senior university itself is not a university in the true sense. It is just an interest training class for the elderly. Although my mother teaches there, she is also a student there, learning calligraphy and traditional Chinese painting from others, so she is very busy every day." After that, Paul asked curiously, "What has Uncle Wilson been up to lately? My mother often talks about him, but she always seems to stop talking." Charlie felt that Paul was not an outsider, so he sighed and said to him, "When you and Aunt just came back, my mother-in-law disappeared during that time, but she is back now." After speaking, Charlie said again, "My mother-in-law, who has a more aggressive personality, my father-in-law is afraid. He knows that Aunt will come back and will trouble Aunt, so he dare not ask Aunt my Kang." Paul nodded lightly, and said with emotion, "It is really hard for us to intervene in matters of our parents' generation." At this time, Charlie's phone rang suddenly, and it turned out to be Warnia, who hadn't seen him for many days. He answered the phone and smiled and asked, "Miss Song, what are you up to lately?" Warnia smiled and said, "I'm just busy. I'm sure you are not busy." After speaking, she asked curiously, "Mr. Wade, do you have time for the night after tomorrow?" Charlie thought for a while and said, "It seems there is nothing wrong. What's wrong?" Warnia smiled and said, "It's nothing, I just want to invite you to have a meal at home, just because Grandpa kept talking about you." Charlie smiled and said, "Okay. Then I'll come to the house the night after tomorrow and talk." Warnia said happily, "Great, Mr. Wade, is it okay at 7 p.m. the next day?" "It is." "See you then." "Okay, see you then." Hanging up Warnia's phone, Paul on the side smiled and asked, "Mr. Wade, was Miss Song calling you?" Charlie knew that he knew Warnia, so he didn't hide it. He nodded and said, "That's right." Paul smiled, "Miss Song called you for her birthday party, right?" "Birthday party?" Charlie said surprised, "Miss Song didn't tell me on the phone just now, she said I would go to her house for dinner the next night." Paul smiled profoundly and said, "It is estimated that Miss Song didn't want you to spend money on preparing gifts for her, so that's why she told you that." "When she told me, she said directly about the birthday party." Charlie couldn't help being a little surprised. Why should she hide her birthday? It won't look pretty even when it comes to the past empty-handed. Is it really like Paul said? Does she want him to not spend money? Charlie thought for a while, and thought it was really possible. Warnya always felt that she owed him favor because he had helped her break through the trapped dragon formation before and confiscated the money. When he made medicine for her grandfather and Tiankai, he quietly gave her a pill. After practicing the rejuvenation pill, he gave it to her grandfather so that her grandfather was at least a dozen or 20 years younger, and it was entirely in her face. It was also the one who gave him the rejuvenation pill to Song Old Master, which made him treat Warnya very seriously, so Warnya's position in the Song family is getting higher and higher. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.